So I want to start off, first of all, not with where we are today in the dating situation, but where we've been. And one of our most popular videos right now on our podcast, 1 month in, is a segment about how Canadian leftist boomers hurt both their elders, so all the generations that came before them, and also their descendants to get ahead. And I'm going to show you guys a photo from the 1970s. It's a popular one. It's actually become a bit of a cultural icon with a phrase that feminists have really embraced. And I guess the question I want to ask you guys is, do you think that boomer women let down their daughters and granddaughters by what they prioritized and fought for? And, maybe give a little bit of context to your answer.
Okay. So the text itself reads, "A woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle." I've personally, being a 90s child, have never seen this photo before. So,
Me
um,
neither.
yep. So, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you watch that 70s show or things like that, it really was the the soapbox of the 70s. You don't need a man, um, or a bath, from the looks of it. And I mean, it took me a really, really long time. I know we're gonna watch a different clip later on, about a lady who was raised by a single mom. I was as well. So I saw a very strong female influence in my household. Um, and it did, affect me in my early 20s and stuff, in my decision making of, I wasn't the person who really wanted to date. I was more of I wanted to work. I knew I wanted to be financially independent. So,
Hmm.
Yeah, no, thanks. And how about you, LB?
Yeah, I think the thought at the in those early days in the 70s and whenever, I think it was maybe an unintentional thing, but yes, I think their decisions definitely have hurt um uh the the people ahead of them, I think, and you said, and then the daughters and granddaughters. Um it's the fallout of the decisions that they've made. It's taken us, I'm a Christian, so it's taken us down a path further and further from biblical principles, from God's design for men and women, for husbands and wives, for families. And the further you go from God, the worse off you get. And now the pendulum has swung so far in that direction. And I think it's maybe coming a bit back, which we'll talk about later, from the men's perspective. But we're seeing the effects of that in society now. And it really is a breakdown of society, because where you don't have the family as the core, and God as the foundation, everything just kind of falls apart from that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, we argued when we were talking about this last week that, marriage and family are institutions that go beyond the church. I mean, again, you can go back to any
Hmm.
society and see that
Yeah.
this was a way that every society organized themselves. But, what we're seeing in our time, especially with the rise of the feminist and postmodernist movements, is not just a, ignorance or, kind of neglect of God, but an outright rebellion against him, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
There,
absolutely.
yeah,
like it was written on our hearts or something.
yes, but very explicitly here,
Yeah.
right? Unlike say the
Yeah.
ancient Romans or
Hmm.
right Attila the Hun, right? But no, that's great. So next thing I wanted to ask you guys is that as we kind of look at what's going on today, and we look at women, as they grow up, they get into early adulthood, and then they kind of approach, you know, midlife, right? We there's a theme these days that women spend their 20s basically chasing the bad boy, discovering themselves, traveling, partying, etc., and then get into their 30s and realize that all the good men have kind of gone away, and that kids also become a changing priority during that time as well, during that 20 years. Is this a real trend that you guys are seeing, and what do you think is driving it?
Um,
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I mean, go ahead, Laura Beth, if you've got it.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is going to be the whole thing. You can cut this out if you want, but it's going to be like, oh, sorry, you go ahead, you go ahead.
Hmm.
This is what you have when you have women on a panel.
No, this is
Yeah.
good. This is a refreshing change from where we just kind of drone on for a while and then
Oh
the other person
goodness.
picks up.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent question. I can't speak specifically to the women in their 20s chasing the bad boy and partying and that sort of stuff. That was not my scene, and I never hung out with friends that did that sort of thing. But I can speak to myself included, a lot of women in their 20s investing in their career. And I think it's just you're investing in something other than the idea of pursuing marriage with a guy. So you're just spending so much time um, just working towards this goal you have in your head. And then I would say this is what happened to me, and I would say a lot for a lot of women. I spent so much time investing in my career, and then the closer I got to 30, I was like, oh, I should really think about this. Like, okay, maybe I should start looking into dating, and then yeah, you don't know where to look for guys that are good men. That for me, that was a Christian. Um, and then I hit 30 and it's like, oh, what happened to the last decade? I think a lot of women, they get to 30 plus maybe, and they find they can't find a man of quality that they want to marry and spend the rest of their life with. And kind of what happened to me too is you come out of this like stupor or you have like this dawning of realization that you think you've either wasted or invested your time for so many years into something else, whether it was good or bad, but it took you away from what maybe your heart truly desires, which is to meet a good man, get married, and have a family. Um, and I think for women who hit 30 and above, there's that the time factor for the childbearing years. For some women, it could be half over by 30, depending on how many years they want to spend having kids. And it is more difficult to have kids, I think, past 30. It's not impossible for sure. Many women do it. Um, but it is a little bit more challenging, I think. You're definitely way more fertile in your 20s. And a lot of women don't realize that. And then they've bypassed this decade, really. And then they look back and they're like, what happened? So, yeah.
No, I completely I had the I guess privilege of running with the bad crowd in my 20s. Um so it was something where I mean I had a brother and I had uncles and things like that. So I did have an example of, who good men were and, what they
Mm,
should do for you. And that in my 20s seemed very old hat and boring. I didn't want to have to, you know, just like how they say, when I was a child, I did childish things. So with that, I was running still, just
mm,
like, I mean, Laura Beth, I know you have two little ones. I have one, well,
mhm.
one in and one out, one cooking and one done. Um, but like they run away from everything. They don't even know what they're running away from.
Totally.
And I think a lot of people in their 20s, and I'm going to say people cuz boys do it too.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
They run after the things that they know are not good,
Hmm.
and it's like, but it feels good. But I
Hmm.
mean, I crashed and burned hard at the end of my 20s. I mean, it resulted in a complete life shift and a
Mm,
divorce and just, all kinds of things. There were biblical parameters for it, so, don't come
mm.
at me in the comments. But uh yeah, it's the too nice wasn't alluring enough. So just like the church, or we're suffering from the seeker sensitive movement that the church had fallen into or has fallen into and things like that. That no amount of pretty glitter is going to make church appealing to the people who aren't ready to come to it.
Mm,
So
that's a good point.
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, and as a follow up to this, guys, because again, one of the things I want to do is I want to, as I said, I don't want to make this just a discussion exclusively for Christians. I do think that there are
Mm-hmm.
biblical
Yep.
principles that are timeless, and if you give it a chance, they're applicable and they're going to benefit you, right? In your no matter who you are, or where you find yourself in life.
Hmm.
The other thing though too is that I don't want people to hear these discussions and say, because this is admittedly where a lot of the conversation is going with the dating crisis stuff online right now is do better, do better, do better.
Mm,
And it's coming from both men and women. They're basically almost
mm-hmm.
yelling past each other in some cases. But I want to ask this question with that in mind is that, presuming there is a young woman out there who is now in her 30s and kind of hitting that crisis point, either like you said, LB, from career reasons, or like you said, Erica, from running with the wrong crowd, right? They're in their 30s now and they're like, okay, I want to course correct, right? I know this is not going to be satisfying going down this path much longer. What advice and encouragement maybe do you have for women who are in their 30s, particularly even like their mid to late 30s, on how to find a good husband?
I think with having set parameters, because a lot of people who get into this, even into their 40s, because I know uh, the people who have run in their 20s and are may go into denial in their 30s and not be ready until
Mm-hmm.
their 40s.